So AI agents, they're everywhere, right? You've heard the hype, you've seen the demos, but what are they really? And more importantly, what are they actually good for right now? We're going to cut through all that noise using some super practical insights from the folks at Anthropic, the people who are building these things every single day.
And we're going to start with a bit of a hot take, a reality check. Eric from Anthropic's research team says that whole dream of an AI agent just booking your perfect vacation for you, it's mostly still a dream. And why is that? Just think about it. Imagine trying to explain every little preference you have. The flight times, no layovers longer than an hour, a hotel that's quiet but also near the city center. You'd spend just as much time prompting the AI as you would just booking it yourself. And if it messes up, the cost is huge.
Okay, so that leads us to the big question, right? If that consumer dream is a little overhyped for now, where is the real value? What are these AI agents actually good for today? And how can we use them in a way that really works? Let's dive in.
So where do we start? Well, the Anthropic team says the very first thing we got to do is get our language right. They noticed that builders, customers, everyone was kind of using the word agent to describe, well, almost everything. So to clear things up, they created a really important distinction. And this is it. This is the core idea. On one side, you've got a workflow. Think of this as being on rails. It follows a fixed, predictable path with a set number of steps. It's all orchestrated by code. But on the other side, you have an agent. This is autonomous, it can loop, it can try things, and its whole purpose is to solve an open-ended goal. And this is the key, the LLM itself is the one calling the shots, figuring out the path as it goes.
So let's really dig into what a workflow is. The assembly line is the perfect analogy. It's totally predictable, totally controlled. Step A happens, then step B, then step C. For example, say a user asks a question. Your first LLM call might just be to figure out, is this a sales question or a support question? Then, based on that answer, the system shunts it over to a completely separate predefined process that's built just for handling that one thing.
An agent, though, that's a whole different animal. Here, you're not giving it a step-by-step plan. You're giving it a big, open-ended goal and a toolbox. You know, things like the ability to search the web or run some code. The agent then decides for itself which tool to use and when and how many times. It might take 2 steps, it might take 20. You don't know. It figures it out. That autonomy is what makes it an agent.
All right, so now we know what they are, but how do you actually build with them? Well, this leads to, honestly, one of the most powerful insights from the Anthropic team. To build a great agent, you have to learn how to have empathy for the model. And this idea comes from this fantastic story from Barry on the Applied AI team. They were debugging an agent that was just acting weird. They couldn't figure out why, so they decided to literally act like the AI. They'd close their eyes for a minute, getting no context, and then blink. Open them for just a second to look at the screen and then have to decide what to do next. All of a sudden, the model's weird choices started making complete sense. So what does that story actually teach us? It boils down to a really simple 3-step guide for builders. First, you have to acknowledge the model is missing huge amounts of context. It's always blinking at the screen. Second, be empathetic. Put yourself in its shoes and ask, what information would I need to make a good decision here? And that directly leads to the 3rd step, writing amazing, detailed descriptions for your tools. As Eric on the team said, if a human engineer can't use a function because of bad documentation, how on earth do you expect an AI to? Okay, so we know what they are, we know how to think like them, but that brings us to the million-dollar question. When should you actually use one? When do you pick an agent over a simpler and probably cheaper workflow? This is the key strategic decision.
Eric from Anthropic puts it perfectly. He says, you shouldn't go after a fly with a bazooka. Agents are the bazooka here. They're incredibly powerful, but they also bring a lot of complexity and cost. Sometimes a simple fly swatter, a basic workflow, is all you need. The real trick is knowing when you actually need all that extra firepower.
So what is that sweet spot? The team says it comes down to these 3 things. The task needs to be valuable, actually worth the effort to automate. It also needs to be complex, something too messy or iterative for a simple on-rails workflow. And this last one, this one is absolutely critical. The cost of error has to be low. You have to be in a situation where mistakes aren't a total catastrophe.
And this table just lays it out perfectly. Booking a vacation? That's overhyped. The cost of error is massive. A wrong flight is a disaster. But automatically updating your company's internal documentation every time a developer checks in new code? That's a perfect underhyped use case. It's super valuable, it's repetitive, and if the agent gets a sentence wrong, who cares? The cost of that error is tiny. A human just spends 5 seconds correct.
And all of this really points to two areas where agents are just crushing it today: coding and search. And the reason is so simple. They both have a built-in feedback loop. A coding agent can write some code and then immediately run a test to see if it works, pass or fail. A search agent can try a query, look at the results, and use that information to make its next query better. That feedback is the secret sauce. Without it, the agent is just flying blind.
All right, so that's the now. But what about the future? Where is this all going? This is where it gets really fun because the Anthropic team gave us two different but equally fascinating visions for what we might see around 2025. First, you've got Eric's view, which is super pragmatic, really focused on business automation. He sees a future where agents become common for taking over these repetitive, high-volume tasks that, until now, were just too expensive to have humans do. I mean, think about it. An agent that updates your technical docs after every single code commit, that's not just a minor improvement. That fundamentally changes how efficiently a company can work. And then you have Barry's vision, which is a little different. He actually built a virtual environment where a bunch of AI agents, a bunch of Claudes, can get together and play the social deduction game Werewolf. Now, this isn't a product, it's research. But it's this incredible way to study what happens when autonomous agents have to cooperate, deceive, and try to figure out what other agents are thinking. It's a peek into the far future of multi-agent systems. Okay, let's pull all of this together. If you're out there building things, what's the playbook? What are the key lessons you should walk away with? It's pretty simple, really. Just 3 rules to live by. First, start simple. Don't grab the bazooka when a fly swatter will do the job. Maybe a really clever workflow is all you need to start. Second, measure your results. You need a clear feedback loop, just like that coding agent, to know if you're actually making things better. And third, build something that's future-proof. And this last point, this is the one you really want to remember. You should always be asking yourself this question: if the underlying AI models get 10 times smarter next year, does my product become useless, or does it become 10 times better? See, if your whole product is just a thin wrapper around an API call, you're building on really shaky ground. But if you're building a system, a unique workflow, a data advantage that uses that AI intelligence, then as the models get smarter, your product just gets better and better. And that, right there, is how you build something that lasts.